Good morning to you, our virtual guests, and welcome once again to the Understanding the Bahamian Insurance Industry virtual webinar series hosted by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. I am Carl Culmer Jr., your moderator for this session, and I wish to thank you all on behalf of the Commission for taking time out of your schedule to register and participate in this, the second edition of our webinar series. During our first webinar, the Commission provided you, our virtual audience, with an opportunity to consider several topics that you'd wish to see discussed using this platform. From those responses, several topics drew considerable interest. Amongst those topics is today's discussion on the difference between agents and brokers. Agents and brokers, amongst other intermediaries, play a pivotal role in the insurance industry in the Bahamas. The Bahamas is an intermediary-driven market. This means that the insurance legislation does not permit direct selling of insurance coverage by an insurer to a policyholder. Therefore, all insurance products and services must be sold through an intermediary, such as an agent, broker, or salesperson. As at December 2020, the size of the intermediary market stood at 58 corporate agents and brokers and 744 salespersons. Salespersons are registered as tied intermediaries of an insurance company, which means they work directly for an insurance company and must be registered with the Commission directly as a salesperson. For agents and brokers, the registration requirements can be found on the Commission's registration checklist and outlines all of the statutory requirements, due diligence, and technical qualifications that an agent and broker must obtain in order to conduct insurance business in the Bahamas. These, along with other requirements, can be found on our website at www.icb.gov.bs. Before we introduce our guests and discuss further the differences and similarities of the agent and broker, we wish to provide you with some brief highlights of our first webinar, where we discussed the role of the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, knowing your insurer and your policy, and the role of the insurance adjuster.
The purpose of the Commission is to ensure a sound and secure insurance marketplace in which the trust and confidence of policyholders and stakeholders are maintained. The Commission is also charged with promoting sound and prudent insurance management and business practices that facilitate a level playing field for all stakeholders. Policyholder protection is of paramount importance to the Commission. Having well-trained professionals in the insurance industry who can explain and appropriately advise the consumers of the benefits and the limitations of the various products is necessary in serving the policyholder's interest. Likewise, having a well-informed and knowledgeable policyholder is important to ensure that they understand the details of the product they are purchasing, how it contributes to their well-being and meets their needs in the areas of health and safety, asset protection, and wealth preservation.
Well, most property policies require that a policyholder maintains their property in a good state of repair. So that would be the first bit of advice. Secondly, at the beginning of the hurricane season, review your sum insured. Make sure it's adequate. The third bit of advice is consider those things that are not insured, such as contents or personal effects. Sometimes you may want to upgrade the cover on your vehicle. So consider what you have insured, is it adequate, and what's not insured that I may consider getting a bit of coverage for.
My suggestion to the general public is to really consider taking out hurricane insurance. I know that these are tough economical times, but there are avenues and ways in which you can meet your premium. Like I said, the banks can assist with premium payment, or you can speak with your agent regarding installment payments. But in closing, I would say, consider it, because if your home is valued at $100,000 and is totally destroyed, do you have $100,000 saved somewhere that you can replace your home, as opposed to maybe paying $2,000, $2,500 in installments to make sure that you have coverage. So that is my suggestion to the general public.
What I want persons to understand is that insurance is a way of managing risk. And the primary purpose of insurance is to reduce financial uncertainty and to make accidental loss more manageable. So when individuals purchase insurance, what they're really doing is transferring the cost of their potential loss to the insurance company in exchange for a fee. And this is known as the premium. Now, some of the more familiar reasons why persons purchase insurance would be to help pay for medical emergencies, illnesses, or future medical care. Also, to guard against financial loss from the death of one of the breadwinners within the family. A person may also just want to simply, get assistance with building wealth and savings for the future. Another very popular reason, and I'm sure you will hear a lot more of it later today, is to protect your home against hurricanes and other unforeseen losses such as fire and flood. And last but by no means least, with insurance, it's a requirement actually by law to have motor insurance when operating a motor vehicle.
You know, Darren, in the Bahamas, we oftentimes refer to an intermediary as my insurance company. However, this is not fully accurate. What is the difference between an insurance company and an insurance intermediary?
Thank you, Carl. That's a very important question. And so I'll say this. The Insurance Act prohibits the direct selling of insurance products in the Bahamas. As such, they must be bought or sold through an intermediary. Hence, the Bahamas is considered to be an intermediaries market. Now, you would want to know who you're purchasing your insurance from, who you would have a contract with. So let me just break it down for you. The insurer, or your insurance company, is the entity that holds the actual risk of the item being covered or insured, be it a person or a thing. The intermediary is responsible for facilitating the placement of that insurance business through salespersons, insurance agents, or brokers.
The contribution of the panelists within that webinar provided us all with food for thought and brought clarity to the questions arising from our audience. We wish to remind you that at any time during our session, please feel free to submit your questions via the live chat, and we will address them at the end of this session. Our aim is to ensure that our sessions remain engaging and interactive, but most importantly, provide you with an opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of the Bahamian insurance industry. Today's panelists are experienced and seasoned insurance professionals operating within the intermediary marketplace, who I am sure will provide you with information that you as policyholders should consider when seeking to obtain insurance coverage for both protection and preservation of your life and assets. Mr. Gilden Gilbert, a graduate of Acadia University and native of Bermuda, has been actively engaged in the insurance industry since 1993, having begun his career in the global insurance brokerage firm Marsh. Upon his transition to the Bahamas in 1997, Mr. Gilbert joined one of the region's premier insurance groups that specialize in medical and health coverage, pension, and property and casualty. Since that time, he has held senior positions with several industry stakeholders before venturing into his current role as president of Chandler Gilbert Insurance Associates Limited. Mr. Gilbert is an active member within the insurance industry, having served as the inaugural president of the Bahamas Insurance Brokers Association, BIBA, for the period 2001 to 2005. Mr. Gilbert was recently re-elected this year to once again serve as president of BIBA. Mr. Howard Knowles leads the team of insurance professionals at Shield Insurance Agents and Brokers Limited. He is an associate of the Chartered Insurance Institute and a chartered insurer. He has served in various senior roles within the industry prior to establishing himself as the Chief Executive Officer of Shield Insurance Agents and Brokers Limited. Mr. Knowles has amassed almost 40 years' experience in the industry and has curated his skills and expertise in the areas of residential and commercial property and casualty insurance, underwriting, sales and marketing, and training and development. Mr. Knowles has served as chairman of the Bahamas Insurance Association and is a founding member of the Insurance Professionals Association and the Insurance Institute of the Bahamas. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today, and I am sure our discussion will provide further insight to understanding the Bahamian insurance industry. But before we begin our session, Please stay tuned for a message by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas.
The Insurance Commission of the Bahamas wants you to know your insurance company. Although you buy a policy from an intermediary, an agent, broker, or salesperson, it's your insurance company that covers your risk and pays your claim. Do you know who your insurance company is? If not, ask your intermediary. Know your insurance company. This message was brought to you by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. All insurance companies and intermediaries must be registered with the Commission. To check, visit www.icb.gov.bs.
Welcome back. In our first webinar, we heard members of the Insurance Commission outline the differences between the insurance company and the insurance intermediary. Some of those intermediaries were identified as salespersons, agents, and brokers. To begin our discussion, I will begin by asking Mr. Knowles, what is the difference between an insurance agent and an insurance broker?
Thank you, Carl. Or should I say Mr. Carl? I don't know. But yes, that's a very interesting question, and one that has perplexed many over the years. So I'm pleased to provide some clarity for that. So agents and brokers, let me begin with how they are the same. They're the same in that both are trusted advisors to clients. But the major difference between the two is that agents represent the companies that they sell the products for, whereas brokers actually work for the client. That is the major difference.
And so I think, Gildan, you can add to that as an individual who's registered as a broker. What does it mean as an individual to be registered solely as a broker?
Again, as Howard highlighted, the difference between an agent and a broker is that the agent represents the insurance company. The broker at all times represents the client. We are appointed by the client in terms of, there are going to be times where there's difficulties in the relationship between the client and the insurer. It's our job as brokers to settle that difference. Obviously under the wording of the policy, yeah. But our focus at all times is to work to the benefit of the insured.
Yeah. Mr. Knowles, oftentimes when policyholders purchase insurance coverage, they may be mistaken in thinking that they're obtaining coverage from the insurance intermediary. This is, however, not accurate. We said that in our first webinar. The client walks away with a policy cover note with the name of an insurer as the header. What instrument authorizes an intermediary to act on behalf of an insurer?
Yes. That's a very common misconception in the Bahamas. As your lead-in indicated, this is an agency-driven market that we live in, which is unlike a lot of other domiciles where the insurers take the lead, where there's direct selling, right? And so what happens in this market is that the customer interfaces exclusively with agents and brokers. And so that has created the perception that they are buying the product from the agents and broker, but the agent, the intermediary, is actually selling that product for their principal, which is the insurance companies that they represent. And the instrument that gives them the authority to do so is they will have agency agreements which allow them to have certain terms and authorities which they can sell certain products. So it may say that it gives them authority up to X to sell motor insurance, or up to Y to sell property insurance. So they also get premiums and they're able to quote. Going back to your earlier question, one of the things is that agents may have the ability to quote, whereas brokers actually have to go to get terms. Now that's not always the case, but brokers generally would have to go and get the terms from the insurance companies because the agents represent and have terms, have manuals, and know what to quote. And so that the instrument is the agency contract, the agency agreement between the company and the agent or the intermediary that allows them to sell the product.
Yeah. I think that's good insight. I think once we understand that there's an agreement in place, you're working on behalf of the insurer. Mm-hmm. Now, oftentimes as a policyholder, we pay a premium. There's some sort of compensation involved as an agency. So what is the compensation called that an agent receives, and how does the agent receive that?
Well, the agent receives a commission.
Yeah.
The commission is their payment for doing the transaction. Actually, brokers receive a commission as well. And the payment comes from the insurance company. So the insurance company is paying the commission for that business. So there's not an add-on per se for the client because it comes out of the premium.
Yeah. And Gildan, I had that question for you too in terms of do brokers receive commission from the insurer, but are there any other compensation attached to being registered as a pure broker or solely as a broker, I should say?
Well, yeah, as Howard said, we as brokers will receive a commission or a fee. What we do in Chandler Gilbert, when we send out our debit notes or invoices to the client will see line items, the net premium due to the insurer, the taxes that are due, and then they will see the line item for commission or fee that Chandler Gilbert earns. So a lot of times we will take a fee as opposed to a commission. But the broker and the agent is compensated for the placement of that risk with the insurer.
And just hopping on something that you said it's oftentimes your company will take a fee rather than a commission. Why term it a fee versus a commission?
Because sometimes the market sets a commission of X percentage for a certain line of business. We may say, we don't necessarily need to earn that amount, especially if we have a large client. We look at the value of service that we're providing to that client, and we look at what that cost is, especially with a lot of our London market placements. We will charge a fee for that service as opposed to taking a commission.
Okay, I think that's a good insight in terms of understanding that compensation. Mr. Knowles, there are some companies that are registered as both an agent and a broker. When a client walks in, how do you distinguish which hat to wear and when dealing with potential clients?
Actually, that's where it gets really tricky. In fact, most agents in the Bahamas are registered, I believe, as agents and brokers. The truth is that whether we're registered as an agent or broker, our goal as an insurance professional is to give the best service that we can to the client. But we also have to wear the hat of being true to the agency agreement that we have with the principal, which is the insurance company. So we have to be true to abiding by the terms of that agreement. We have to be true, in essence, we have to give them good business. When I say good business, profitable business, when I say profitable business, I'm talking about business that has minimal claims. Because the reality is that if we don't turn in business that's profitable to the insurer, the agent will get cut off, right? That's the stark reality. So in order to keep your relationship with the company, you have to write that good business. So you always have to, whether you're an agent or a broker, right? Because both have to fulfill a certain criteria for the insurance company. But our overriding obligation as insurance intermediaries is always to give the client the best service at the best price that's available. So we wear both hats. We wear both hats, just like I guess lawyers wear both hats. They have to abide by the rules of the court as well as protect their clients. And one of the things that we have to get across as an industry is that we are professionals as an industry. We're professionals in the service that we offer.
And I think the overwhelming thing that comes from both of the discussion is service. And understanding that as an intermediary, you have to offer that service to the client because that's what the client is coming to the intermediary for. You're helping them filter out some of the things that are necessary for them to get the correct coverage that they desire and that they require.
So Carl, if I may, we know the product. The client generally doesn't know the product.
Exactly.
So we have to use our expertise and we have to use the skills and the knowledge that we have from our training to guide the customer through the process. One of the things that we have to know as an industry, as intermediaries, is that we have to add some value to the service. For us to interject ourselves into the chain, there has to be some value for us being there.
I think, once again, that's a very important point. And when you talk about the many hats that you wear, Gilden, I want to ask you this. Do brokers, even though they're not quote-unquote registered salespersons, do you have to use some of those salespersons' techniques in order to ensure that your client receives value for the service that you provide?
I wouldn't say salesperson's techniques. We don't, as a broker, we don't sell a product.
Yeah.
We don't sell insurance products. We provide a service to the client. We are the go-between between the client and the insurer.
Yeah.
So we advise the client and direct the client to the product that best suits that client's needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think same question to you, Howard. As an agent, even though you're registered as an agent, you still have some salesperson's technique. Unlike the broker who says, you know, I am here to add value to you, a service for you, our clients, but as an agent, do you have to use some salesperson's technique in order to distinguish exactly what this client needs?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely. I mean, it's a sales-driven business that we're engaged in. I mean, we have to develop. I mean, to some extent, it's a high-volume business, particularly when you're dealing with motor insurance and things like that. And the competition out there is great. As you said, there's like, what I think you said, 58 or
58
so. 58 agents.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sort of distinguish why should a person come to my shop rather than they go to another shop.
Exactly.
And so as we see the ads all over TV and stuff like that from agents, and so yes, you have to use some sales techniques in order to get clients in.
Yeah.
But I think the important point here is that I think when somebody walks into an intermediary's office, they should know whether they're dealing with an agent or a broker.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think is missing in the market. When we put together the 2005 Act, the Domestic Insurance Act, there was talk about actually creating separate entrances in the building for the agent and the broker.
Yeah.
Some of the large players fought against that. The compromise was supposed to be that when a client walks in, that client would know whether they're dealing with a broker or an agent when they walk through the door. I don't think that's happened.
And I think opportunities like this in this space provide us to reach out to our policyholders. I find that the education for insurance has increased over the years in terms of not only from the commission, and that's not a plug for the commission, but also I find a lot more agents and brokers are now being a lot more open with their clients to ensure that they understand exactly what business they are trying to get, what policy that they require. So that is something that we look at.
Could I piggyback on what Dylan just said? Yeah. So at Shield, we are both agents and brokers, right? Yeah. When we sell our volume products, which is general insurance, we do that as an agent of the companies that we represent. And we represent more than one company. So that's what could get confusing because like brokers, we also represent more than one company. So we can give different quotes from different companies that we represent, right? But now when we sell life and health products, we do that as a broker. And one of the essential differences is that with the general insurance products, we have binding authority. With the life and health, we have no binding authority. We just give quotes, but we can't bind. And so whenever we operate in the space, in the life and health space, or the long-term insurance space, as the Act calls it, we are operating as a broker. But when we operate on the general insurance space, we are clearly an agent.
And that's good to distinguish. Now, you threw out a term there, and we want to make sure that our policyholders and our registered audience understand binding authority. What do you mean by binding authority?
Well, binding authority is really the ability to automatically write the insurance. As soon as that client signs and pays, they're covered. We don't have to go to someone and say, can you now put this coverage in place? The coverage is the coverage is in effect immediately. That's what binding authority is.
Good. So tying it back into what you said earlier in terms of the agency agreement, that forms part of the language of the agency agreement, I imagine.
It is from the agency agreement that we get that binding authority.
Exactly.
Without that, we would not have that privilege to bind another insurance entity, which is a company that we represent. We actually have full authority within the terms and scope of the agency agreement to put them on the hook for millions of dollars.
And that's interesting. You brought up a point when you said you acted as a broker for health insurance, on the health insurance space. Gilden, Do brokers obtain policy coverage quotes from all insurers or only certain ones?
Well, unfortunately, the way this market is structured, the insurers typically only look at agents. It's very difficult in this market to be a broker because even us as brokers, we offer a product right now from one local insurer.
Yeah.
We have a broker's agreement. That broker's agreement does give us binding authority. What I would like to see is the market operate as a truly broker market. Yes, the agency agreements are fine, but when I speak to an insurer and I say, I would like to negotiate placement on behalf of client X, I'm told by that insurer, you don't have an agreement with us, so we can't accept the business. I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree with that because I don't have any allegiance to an insurance company.
Your allegiance is to the
My
client.
allegiance is to the client.
Yeah.
If my client comes to me and says, I want you to give me options on from insurer A, B, C, and D, from which I will give a comparison. The difficulty is that if I go to insurer C, with whom I have a broker arrangement, then I can't go to A and B because they won't accept the business from me. To me, that limits the scope of the market for a broker.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we work around it because we then use our technical knowledge and skills to negotiate with the insurer that we have the arrangement with to make sure that that client always has the best product.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I had to do, in my former life, when I was at Marsh, was just that. I had to negotiate every single piece of coverage with the insurer, even on the same program. I had to negotiate different terms and conditions that benefited the client.
And that goes to the value that we talked about. That speaks to the value that you should add and you should add to the entire intermediary process.
Yeah.
And so while I know in that space you may have that particular arrangement with one particular insurer, it's a good opportunity for us to still speak about it so that clients know that they still have options. And I think that's important to know, that clients and policyholders have options as to who and where they place their trust in, because there is a fiduciary relationship that is established as an intermediary with that client.
Carl, just continuing the thought that Gilden said, I mean, in essence, Gilden is right. Like, in my opinion, there are no real true brokers in the Bahamas because most brokers actually have binding authority from companies, right? So they're not truly brokers. They're actually operating under like a kind of quasi-agency sort of arrangement, right? It kind of blurries the water a bit, muddies the water a bit, especially when you consider the fact that the Insurance Act allows agents to sell up to 5 different companies, right? So you have agents can sell up to 5 different insurance companies, and brokers, I think, kind of unlimited, right? But 5 is a lot, right? So that does give the client a lot of choice, right? Now, on the other side, you do have some agents that are, I would use the term tied agents. They're tied. They only represent one company because they're part of, they fall under that company's family or that family of companies, right? So they only can sell for that company. They can offer no choice, right? They are more true agents, I think, right? Because they only sell for one company, right? So they can't really offer the client any other services that if the company doesn't sell it, then they can't offer it. But for most independent agents, which is what some of the companies in this operating in the space are, if you're writing for more than one company, you're more of an independent agent, right? And you can give the client more choice. Some like, for example, we write for 2 companies, right? But there's some companies that write for more. Like, I know companies that write up to the 5 companies, right? Insurance companies. So they're really more like brokers in a way, because they're providing multiple options, right? But the thing is that we have to do it in a professional way. And I know there's a question that was asked, do we always offer them choices, right? I think it depends on the situation, because if you know what the insurer offers, right? Then you don't always have to get quotes from each insurer because you're familiar with their products, you know what they want, you know what they like, they don't like. And so that's your job as an agent, that's your job as a broker, to know what the risk appetite of a particular company is. And so you cut through that whole process for the client having to go and shop around by being able to say, okay, you want this, and I know who I can match your needs with. And that's what you do as an agent, and that's what you definitely do as a broker.
And I think that's an interesting point, because when you say shop around, I'm a policyholder too. As much as I represent the regulatory authority or I'm involved in the insurance industry, I'm still a policyholder. And when I shop around, we go back to that word again, value for my money. And so when I think about how much money I have to pay, to what extent, if any, can a broker or agent affect the price of a policy? And I probably start with Gilden on that, and then Howard, you can probably chime in on that too.
Well, the premium is the premium. The insurer is going to underwrite the risk, set a value for what that transactional cost is to transfer the risk from the insured to the insurer. That, to me, that's net premium. I believe, as a broker, insurers should be issuing net premiums, and let the broker then add their fee to that, which can be negotiated with the client. So as far as the broker having an impact on the premium, I think in the total cost of the insurance placement, we can have an impact, because instead of taking a commission, we can negotiate a fee.
A fee, okay.
We can negotiate a flat fee. I mean, for example, we have a very large client that we work with. We have signed a consulting agreement with this client. So, and under that consulting agreement, we would charge an hourly rate.
Now, just for point of emphasis, when you say consulting agreement, you're consulting still as a broker.
Because Chandler Gilbert Insurance Associate is not just a broker, we are consultants as well. So a commercial entity could come to us just for consulting services without us negotiating any coverage for them.
And that forms part of when you talk about intermediary services, you're still providing advice as a fiduciary agent. But I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
So we have that consulting agreement, and what we've agreed with the client is that when we handle a placement, when we negotiate a placement, whatever commission is typically due on that placement, we only charge them 50%. Because we have a consulting agreement. So every time we have a discussion with them on the phone or through a Zoom call, there's an hourly fee. Anything that we negotiate and place on their behalf, our fee is 50% of what the commission would be.
So he sounds like an attorney. We have an hourly fee.
And that's exactly what it is. We, as a broker, we are insurance professionals.
Exactly.
And therefore, we should get a fee for our service. I've always believed we should get a fee for our service rather than a commission, whether that's an hourly fee or it's a pre-negotiated fee with the client.
And that's from a broker's point of view. As an agent, Howard, can you affect the cost that the policyholder, and I think Gilden did a good job in terms of breaking down premium in terms of the net premium that's charged by the insurer. But the only thing that's flexible on your end is commission, right? So,
that was interesting, right? Because I was listening to Gilbert with curious interest just now, because on the agency side, there's this no rebating thing under the Act. You're not allowed to rebate commission, right?
Exactly.
Which, personally, I think...
but just to argue that point, giving up some of your commission is not rebating. Rebating is tied to the... And this is the discussion that...
And this is an ongoing discussion.
Ongoing discussion.
Yes.
Rebating is reducing the insurance premium to pick up the business. That's or you physically giving something back from the insurance premium to the client. That's rebating. If an intermediary decides to take a lower commission, I don't see that as rebating.
Okay, and Gilbert teaching me today. That wasn't my understanding.
not that Gildan isn't right or wrong. I'm
Right.
saying there's a lot of discussion around the
What
term
Gildan
rebate.
is saying makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
but that's not the common perception of the industry.
And then, there's a legal definition
Yes.
too. And so how you place that in a legal perception in terms of what is rebating. But we're introducing terms, but we can just
Because
discuss that.
I absolutely 100% agree and support the concept that Gildan just said.
Yeah.
Because it's my commission, it's my earnings.
Yeah.
I should be allowed to do what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't see how the act could get up in that, right? So I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're
Exactly.
taught, right?
Yeah.
That's not what you're taught is the thing to do. But in terms of your question, I would say that the premium is the premium,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But, for example, say with motor insurance,
Mm-hmm.
right, which is sort of the most common thing bought in the Bahamas, you can impact the premium because if you know the special discounts that are allowed and things like that. So as a professional, you can figure out ways to get the premium down. There may be discounts for fleet, there may be discount for good claims and things like that you can work the premium down, right? But also, sometimes just the power of your relationship with the insurer, because you've been doing business with them for so long, if you need a special, favor or a special rate, you may be able to negotiate. And so that's where the agent comes in, his relationship with the client, leveraging his relationship with the insurers. But ultimately, the premiums are set not by even the insurer, but by the reinsurance.
Rate.
So there's sometimes not much that they can even do.
And the wiggle room is in the negotiation, and the wiggle room is in the value that you provide. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's in the value that you as an intermediary provide your clients, and you see exactly, hey, like you said, you have a fleet of vehicles, meaning we have a company that has more than 10 vehicles, and you're able to negotiate based on the relationship that you have with the client and leverage the relationship that you have with the insurer. So I think that's important to understand that while there are some fixed areas of the premium, there is some area, very minute,
Compromise.
very minute area of compromise where you as intermediaries can negotiate on your client's behalf and providing the client the best cost. Now, if I purchase my policy from an agent or a broker, can I also submit my claim through that same agent or broker? I know some insurers have this element of claims attached to them, but can I also do that? And I think we can probably start with you, Howard, and then ask Gildan afterwards.
It varies. It's not hard and fast. Some agents will deal directly with insurance claims. They will actually take the report and settle them. Then there are some insurers that absolutely say hands off. They want the report from day one to come directly to them, right? But yeah, for those agents that have the ability to handle their clients' claims, I think it's a fortunate situation because it's not like your client is being handled remotely somewhere else, right? But yeah, I mean it varies. Some agents have settling authority, just like they have binding authority. They have claim settling authority, and some don't.
And I like to make sure that our audience are fully aware of some of the terms because insurance professionals use their jargon, and by settling authority, it simply means they have the ability to
pay out claims, settle claims, yeah.
Exactly. And Gildan, do you have that opportunity to?
Typically, what would happen is the client will file the claim directly with the insurer, but we are always involved in the process because, as I said earlier, sometimes there are issues when it comes to settling claims. Now, I think I have somewhat of a reputation in the market that, I expect my clients' claims to be handled expeditiously. And I've had situations in the past where I've had to refer matters to the insurance commission because the claim wasn't being settled according to the policy word. See, at the end of the day, the way I was taught in insurance and the way insurance operates, the contract is the policy wording.
Yes.
There's no email or letter that the insurance company can send out that changes that contract wording, that policy wording, which is the contract. So what I say to the insurer is, listen, I'm not asking you to do me a favor. I'm asking you to settle according to your own policy wording. So I've had situations where, I may not have referred them to the insurance commission, but I've given insurers ultimatum. I've said, this settlement process has gone on long enough.
Yeah.
If the check isn't cut by such and such a date, then my file gets packed up and gets sent to the insurance commission because what I'm looking at is the policy wording.
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow the insurer to operate outside of that policy wording.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point. I think, Howard, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's whether you're an agent or broker, your job is to fight for your client.
Exactly.
Because if you have a happy client, then you will keep that
Of
client.
a retained client.
Yeah.
That client is being retained by your business.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also absolutely what Gildan said, like it is the policy wording.
Yeah.
Like someone say, no, I mean, it is the policy, right? So what happens is oftentimes clients don't read their policy, right? And sometimes as an industry, we don't do our job of explaining the policy properly either, right?
And I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it. I'm saying it because insurance could be very transactional.
Yeah.
People come in, you get them out as quick as possible, right?
Yeah.
And you don't tell them certain things. Sometimes, I mean, you may miss, some people say, oh, I didn't know there was a deductible. Yeah. Now, the truth is sometimes you told them there's a deductible, but they don't even know what a deductible is or they forget, right? And a deductible, by the way, is the first portion of the claim that needs to be paid out of the client's pocket, right?
And just want to put a plug there because I find that when you say out of pocket, a lot of clients think that automatically I have to come up with this money out of my pocket as a part of the deductible. Is that true in all cases? Or is that true at all? In terms of
the deductible is the client's skin in the game.
Contribution. That's the client's contribution.
Exactly.
And that's like Gilda said. That's to keep the client interested.
Yeah.
The reason for the deductible being there is because if you think, oh, I'm just driving around and hey, if this thing crashes, the insurance company's just going to pay it.
Avoid
but you have a stake in the game. Yeah.
And so, I mean, going back to what I'm saying, is it something that automatically comes out, or is it deducted from a claim? How does a deductible occur at the level?
So what happens is if you have, let's say, keep it simple, $1,000 claim, your deductible is $100.
Yeah.
The insurer is going to give you $900.
Exactly.
So you're responsible for the first.
For the first $100. And that's what I wanted to know, because a lot of clients think sometimes I got to come up with this amount. And $1,000 is a small claim when you consider a house goes all the way down and I have to come up with so much percentage of.
Yeah, but sometimes you do.
And sometimes you do.
Because, like, say, for a car insurance claim, if it's for repairs to your car, we may authorize repairs to the body shop, but then we tell you that you have to pay your deductible to the body shop before you can pick up your car.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so they do have to find it out of pocket.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to make sure that it's circumstantial in terms of based on sometimes the cover that may happen, and based on the relationships that you as an agency may negotiate with the insurer. But the deductible is mandatory.
Right, yeah. But we got a little sidetracked with the deductible. But what I was saying was that what's incumbent on the agent, the broker, but really is incumbent on the client is to know what they're purchasing.
Exactly.
They have to know their policy. Many Bahamians, sadly, do not read policies. Right? They may not read it until something happens, right? And, we can be blamed sometimes as an industry, but really, as Bahamians, you have to take the blame for yourself because you have to be judicious as to what you're buying.
Yeah. And if you can walk us through, just through a process in terms of if a client comes in and you show them a policy, do you show them any key areas of the policy that they should pay particular attention while reminding them that they're responsible for understanding or learning, and if necessary, asking questions where they don't understand?
Yes, definitely. I mean, so if you're selling motor insurance, you tell them about the deductible.
Yeah.
You tell them whether the difference between, like, if they're offering comprehensive or third party, what comprehensive covers, what third party covers, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing home insurance, certainly what you do is, in fact, we actually get them to sign, because I think that's actually a legal requirement, to say that they understand that they have to insure their home for its proper value. And so the difference between, full replacement costs and, because a lot of people they say, well, I don't have that to pay, but they want to pay less. And so if they're underinsured, we make them sign to say that they understand that they're
underinsured.
underinsured.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't always the case,
Yeah.
but now definitely that's done.
And I think that's part of an effort, not only by the commission, but industry wanting them being the policyholders to understand that there is a cost to these assets, and insurance is not a 100% reimbursement. It's to put you in a position, of course, where you were before any type of loss, but you have to have some skin in the game also.
It's protection of the asset.
Exactly.
Now one of the things I just say to go back, talking about claim, I've had, quite some time ago, I had a comment made by an underwriter at one of the insurance companies say to me, well, we're not interested in this risk because they might have a claim. Well,
that's the purpose of insurance.
One of the things that I think the insurance public needs to understand, the value of an insurance company is not in the premium they charge you. It's in them paying your claim.
Exactly.
That is the value. The insurance company is there to pay the claim.
Yeah.
Everything else, whether they make a profit or not, that is obviously for the survivability of the insured, that has to be some concern. But the first concern for the insured has to be, will my claim be paid? The insurance company is there to pay the claim.
Yeah. And that's the cut the mustard or pass the mustard test, right?
Someone once said, Gildan, that the claim is our shop window.
Yep.
Yeah, everything else is just window dressing, but the claim, how we settle the claim, how we deal with you at the claim time, that's really our shop window.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a story. I don't know if you remember Michael Milken, the junk bond king. Well, he had, when I was in the Bermuda market, he had placed the $75 million D&O, direct and officers liability coverage. When the scandal hit the press, there was a company at the time called Ace, which is now owned by Chubb. They just wrote a $75 million check and said to him, listen, we know you're going to blow through these limits. Take the $75 million because it doesn't make sense us nickel and diamond. We know where it's going. So they just cut the check without a real formal notice of claim. They knew it was coming, and they just cut the check.
But I think that's a lot of money to just cut the check on. But I think it's important that we understand that the claim, I think it's a very crucial part, how you deal with the client during the claim, because it's a pain sometimes probably to pay the premium for some clients, and they may say, oh, I have to pay this premium, and recognizing that it's important for them. But they really test you when they say, I have a claim to make. Can you help me through this process, right?
Carl, that's what we're here for. That's what we exist. And I think as an industry, sometimes we wonder why we get up out of bed, but that's what we should be getting out of bed for, because we exist while our customers are in the most distressful times of their life. Like we exist to put their lives back together. So on life, when it's life and health products, when people are sick and dying or dead, to be there for their families. But on the general insurance side, when people have car crashes and trying to, get their ride back in shape, or when there's a hurricane and we live in a hurricane zone, we exist for that type of stuff. When you have a break-in, so we exist for when clients are at their worst state of life, to be there for them, to help them to bring their life back together. That's why we're here.
I recall
and I can tell you, with Chandler Gilbert, one of the things you won't typically see with Chandler Gilbert, you won't see us advertised. All of the business we have on our books has been word of mouth. Our clients have our cell phone numbers. So if something happens 5 o'clock in the morning, the client has my cell phone number or Victor's cell phone number. We have to be there for the client.
Now, one of the quotes I take in all the time is that clients don't expect you to be perfect, but they expect you to be there when things go wrong. And that is the business of insurance. They're there for when things go wrong. So let's switch gears for a bit. You said something, you said, that was not the way that I was taught in insurance. And, we recognize that there's some technical skills, some technical qualifications that agents, brokers, salespersons have to have. What are some of the qualifications that an agent or a broker should have in order to conduct insurance business in the Bahamas? And I'll probably start with you, Howard, and then we can go, because you had a fancy title in terms of associated and chartered insurer. Can you explain some of those technical qualifications?
Okay, so one of our burdens as an industry is to kind of get across to the public that we are professionals just like the lawyers, just like
Bankers,
the
accountants.
bankers and all of that, right? Accountants. We're professionals, and so we have professional qualifications that we have to, well, that if we are wise, we would pursue. I happen to have my ACII, which is I'm an associate of the Chartered Institute of Insurance in the UK, right? There's also folks that are registered under Canada, right? So these are international qualifications that are recognized around the world. If you have these designations and you put them behind your name, if someone in Timbuktu sees it, they understand what it means, right? And so these are international qualifications. So we stand on the same playing field as anyone from around the world. And so yes, we, as salespeople here, I know people who just, not just, but people who are salespeople have to get registered and pass an exam with the Insurance Commission. But folks that run agencies should have some sort of international designation, whether it's just a certificate of insurance or whether they go to getting a full-blown ACI or a fellowship. They should have some qualification to say, hey, this is what qualifies me to be here. This is what qualifies me to run an agency.
And that forms part of our requirements too, for the Insurance Commission. Gilden, I know you started off your industry in a very big brokerage firm in Marsh. And what are some of the things, the qualifications that they would encourage you as a young broker or a young registered person with them, individual with them?
I mean, I tell this story quite often. When I joined Marsh, for the first 6 months, I had a desk, but I couldn't answer the telephone. Because the philosophy of Marsh was, if you're going to pick up that phone and it's a client, you have to be in a position where you can answer the query that client has. If you can't answer that query, then you have no right to answer the phone. So my first 6 months at Marsh was spent learning policy documents from start to finish. Definition, I knew the policies inside and out, backwards and forwards. So as a broker, my abilities are that I can compare and contrast policies. I have the ability to write policy language because some of the policies that I did, you know, one of the things that came up when I was at Marsh, Mike Tyson was going into a fight. So I got a call from, I think it was a New York Marsh broker saying, you know, Mike Tyson's going into this fight, we need a $100 million policy in the event he doesn't show up. So that policy had to be written. So, you know, we had to manuscript that policy from scratch. So, you know, that's where the technical abilities come in as a broker. You know, if you look at the new insurance products that come to market, they tend to be driven by brokers. The entire Bermuda market was created effectively by Marsh and Aon. They created ACE and XL and you know, the multi-billion-dollar insurers that are operating the market now. So there's a technical ability.
And a part of that technical ability, I imagine, is there has to be an understanding of law. There has to be an understanding of reinsurance. Actuarial science, just a bit of it, understanding exactly morbidity, mortality rates, all of these things that help put together the language of a policy. And so those are some of the technical skills that we look at.
And all of that is covered in these series of exams that you do. You know, from statistics to actuarial science, law, a lot of law.
I know.
Because there's a lot of law in insurance because you're dealing with, and insurance is a legal document. And so you have to understand the technical part of being able to read the contract. Otherwise, you're not doing your job. And so you shouldn't really be selling unless you understand what you're selling.
And you know, they speak to it in the Latin, ubere me fide. And it's of utmost good faith, and that's what that contract is built upon in terms of utmost good faith. So we learned about the technical qualifications. Are there any formal industry rules or code of conduct that brokers and agents, internationally and locally, what should they abide by these codes? I know the ACII may have some things in terms of ethics, but are there any codes of conduct that?
I mean, you have to be ethical as in any other business practice. You know. Brokers, for example, we have to carry professional liability insurance. Part of protecting against losses with that is to make sure when a client gives us instructions to buy and cover, we buy and cover.
Yeah.
And we buy and cover at the terms that we have negotiated on their behalf.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as the code of conduct, as far as ethics, it's operating in good faith and operating with full transparency.
Yeah, yeah. Anything to add to that, Howard?
Yes, of course, we all report to the Insurance Commission, so that they have something to say. But most of us are members of professional organizations like the Bahamas Insurance Association, which has a code of conduct, and I think BIBA, Bahamas Insurance Brokers Association, has a code of conduct, and so you operate by those code of conducts. But as Gildan says, ultimately, what should drive you is your own ethics and your professionalism, right? That should really be what drives you, because too many people have given the industry a bad name. You don't want to be one of them who gives the industry a bad name.
And it's important to point this out, because policyholders, once again, that's what we have in mind for this entire venture, is to ensure that they know there's some level of accountability that you as an agent or a broker have to them and to the industry. And so once they recognize that accountability is there, they feel a little bit more comfortable, and then that's when you add all of the layers in terms of value for service and being there for them when things go wrong, like we said earlier.
I mean, it's as simple as the only thing I have is my name.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And you've tied your name to your company.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So you mentioned some associations. Is there a formal governing body or trade association responsible for representation and governing the activities of brokers, likewise agents? I think.
Well, we have the Bahamas Insurance Brokers Association, which was created back in 2001 to focus on the issues around brokers, making sure that those who call themselves brokers operate as brokers, that they're open and transparent to their clients, that they negotiate in good faith. While we as brokers don't report to any insurance company, we still have to have a relationship with the insurance company.
Obviously, yeah. And Howard?
Yeah. And then we have the Bahamas Insurance Association, which is similar, except that it makes up not just intermediaries, but also the insurance companies, the loss adjusters, and really it's a representative voice for the industry to speak when the need arises, and we discuss issues in common, and like I said, you have to abide by a certain code of conduct that was drafted many years ago to be a professional, to be a part of that industry, it's interesting that there's also the many members of the industry also fall under the umbrella of the Insurance Institute.
Yeah.
There's the Institute as well, which governs people that work in the industry.
And when you make govern,
well, not governs, yeah.
That's a part of the education.
Yeah, it's part of the education, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To ensure that as intermediaries, you remain abreast of all of the nuances that happen in insurance, and you become an even better insurance professional.
Like it equips you. Yes.
Exactly. I think that's a good note to end on in terms of equipping our agents and brokers to provide maximum value and service to the clients.
Yeah.
And so I just want to know if there are any last words that you'd like for our policyholders, those in the virtual space, to truly walk away with understanding the dynamics of the agent and the broker.
Yeah, and again, I would go back. Obviously, I favor the broker side because we are independent of any insurance company. We're not beholden to an insurance company. And even, when it comes to the creation of products, I mean, as you would be aware, Carl, back in 2004, I created a medical malpractice captive for the local physicians, which is now a domestic insurance company. Typically, those types of things come out of brokers rather than agents, because the agent has to operate within the confines of the agency agreement.
Exactly.
Whereas us as brokers, we can go out and create insurance entities if we so desire.
Just continuing the thought that we were on just now, I would say that we're also regulated by the Insurance Commission. You find folks, Carl, and the things that y'all try to instill in setting up agents is that agents are people of character, people of competence, people that have the necessary capital to run their business. So character, competence, and they have the capacity, the right staff and all of that. But what I wanted to say too is that insurance has proven to be a very robust industry.
Yes.
You know, a lot of industries are sort of like, you know, falling apart, especially during the pandemic. But I think people need to look at the insurance. It's a very stable career. On the agents and broker side and on the insurance company side. So people need to begin to take insurance. You know, once ago, banking was the job that everyone wanted, right? But people need to begin to take insurance as a serious industry because we're here to stay. And it's a very stable industry.
So I think those are good words to end on and prepare for the questions from the audience. But the Commission also wishes to reiterate that whether you prefer the services of an agent or a broker, and of course, I had that question there, but I think through our discussions, persons will understand that. But whether you choose an agent or broker, you should always review and read the policy contract to ensure that you're getting the insurance coverage that meets your needs, and that you as a policyholder control the options and have the freedom of choice to select an insurance company that best satisfies your needs in both products and service. And I think that's, we said that numerous times, value for service. Well, gentlemen, our virtual chat appears to be firing away with questions, so I hope you are prepared to discuss this topic even further. We will now entertain questions coming from the live chat. So, Gildan, we see a question, Gildan and Howard, we see a question come in here. I think we discussed it earlier. It was about premiums, but would the cost of my life insurance premiums be less expensive if I purchase my policy directly from the insurer using their registered salesperson or agent? And I know we addressed it, but it'll be good to still reiterate a response that we had earlier.
But life insurance is a different animal.
Yeah.
Life insurance is typically sold through an in-house sales force. So life insurance companies typically do not sell direct to the policyholder. They'll sell through their sales force. So there's really no way to access the policy directly.
Howard, you want to add anything to that?
No, yeah, Gildan has hit it out the park with that one. I mean, there's no difference between, if you could have bought it from the life insurer themselves, the price would theoretically be the same. Because what insurers tend to do is to try to keep a level playing field. So there's no advantage if you bought the vehicle bought the insurance directly from them or from a broker agent.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point because we see a lot of U.S. ads, insurance ads running on television, Progressive and Geico. Those are actually agents. They aren't insurance companies.
Yeah. And you see the ingenuity they use in terms of summing up so many different quotes and all of that, so we see that. This is a question coming in from the chat also, and I think this formed one of the questions that we said, I wanted to ask you earlier, but are there any real advantages? Now I know we have an agent, we have a broker, but are there any real advantages to the customer if they were to choose an agent over a broker or vice versa to get their business, to get the policy that they require? Now, this is the versus part where we can allow you to discuss exactly how you sell your service.
Well, I would just say, you know, the key difference between a broker and an agent is that the insured will know at all times that that broker, there's no question that that broker is working for the insured and not the insurer. If it comes a point where, you know, and I don't know if this has been tested, but if it comes to the point where an issue is so contentious that a file needs to be referred to the insurance commission, is an agent of that insurer going to send that file to the insurance commission? I don't know if that's been tested. I know I've come close to doing it as a broker, and I think with that thread, you know, I've had insurers who've said, you know what, it doesn't make sense going down this path. But I am beholden as a broker at all times to the insured.
Yeah, well, as we've said before, our job as agents or brokers is to fight for the client. But, you know, are there advantages to placing the business with the agent as opposed to a broker. In theory, right? In theory, there may be advantages using a broker because, you know, when a person wears a broker's hat, their job is to fight for the client, right? But as we established in the segment, in the Bahamian market, as I had said, in my opinion, there's really no real brokers in this market because agents can sell up to five different insurance companies. So that gives a vast array of products that they can access. And, you know, what's interesting is that there's a lot of networking actually that goes on in this market.
Yeah.
Because even up to yesterday, I had someone contact me. They had a client, this was an agent, who wasn't able to assist the client themselves, but they knew that it was something that we, at the company that I work for, would be able to offer. And they weren't looking for any commission or anything like that on it, but they just wanted to be able to assist their client. So they know who sells what in the market. And so we have people in our market that are so professional that they're not really even commission driven. They want to help the client. So they, in that respect, they acted as a broker for their client, not a paid broker, but coming to where they knew that the business could be placed and asked us to assist them with this client's needs.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, Howard, because through Chandler Gilbert, because of our vast relationships in the London market, we actually placed the professional liability cover for a number of the local brokers.
Yeah. So there's advantages on all sides for the client. And I think that's good for the clients to know that. And like I said, not to sound like a broken record, the value that the intermediary provides the client, that's what distinguishes your agency from another agency or your brokerage firm from another brokerage firm.
Yeah, Carl, if I may, what I think is most important for the client is to have a relationship with the person that they're doing business with.
Yeah.
Whether it's an agent or whether it's a broker, like you need to have a relationship with the person that you're doing business with. Like, you know, like I had said earlier, like insurance has become so transactional, like, you know, people come in, they want to get out. And I know that to a certain extent around the world, insurance has become transactional. People buy it over the internet and stuff like that. But there's great value in doing business with someone who you know, you have a relationship with, and sustaining a relationship with that company over the years, because that actually will help that agent or that broker to be able to fight for you because they know your track record. Yeah. You're not just a client who's in and out, and that's what's important, right? Like this is, if I don't want to say it too much, but it's really a relationship business.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and you know, Carl, that leads into something that you and I discussed before the show. One of the things that we find is, especially commercial clients that put their insurance cover out to tender. Government agencies do it as well. You know, a lot of times the client, whether it be a government agency or a corporate client, will put a package together, an insurance package together, and ask brokers or agents to come and pick up those packages. In reality, the way that those clients should be handling their insurance products or their insurance purchases is they should be having the brokers and agents come in and do a dog and pony show, and they should select the broker or agent that they wish to work with, because, and I can tell you, if we if a client comes to us, they have, you know, let's say professional liability coverage and it's placed through the London market. If they are with another intermediary, it doesn't make sense us even entertaining that risk, because the London market may appear to be big, but the London market is still very small from a relationship perspective. And one broker is not going to have an advantage over another broker, especially if there's one broker already holding that risk in the London market.
Yeah.
So it's really, what the client really should do is, first and foremost, select a broker or agent. Let them come in and do a dog and pony show. Let the broker and agent tell you what they can do for you in the relationship. You make your decision on that basis, and then let them go out, because then the market is completely open for them to go out and shop. Because if you have 4 or 5 brokers in the market shopping the same risk, the client is never going to get the best terms because the underwriter is going to say, listen, I'm in high demand right now. I don't need to do anything with my premiums. In fact, I can increase my premiums if I wish because I am in high demand.
Yeah.
So in order for the client to get the best value for that product, they should appoint a broker or agent and let that intermediary shop on their behalf.
And what I see coming out, and we have some other questions coming in the group. I just want to get some of those out. But what I do see coming out, especially from your discussion, is that when you say in the London market, that's more or less on the commercial side of things, right?
Well, commercial or professional liability, which could be lawyers, physicians, architects, engineers.
Some of those professions that require those types of cover in order to conduct that service. And of course, I don't think we should leave that out too. We indicated insurance companies are professionals and they have to have a level of indemnity cover to make sure that they are covered in their actions and in their dealings with the clients, right? Yeah.
And just to further the point that Gildan is making, right? So we do have options, whether we are, tied agents, where we only write for one company, or whether we write for 2 to 5 companies. Like most agents also will have options to use the London market. There's certain risks that are too big for this market.
Yeah.
And so you find that frequently, for example, Lloyd's is registered here as an insurer.
An associate of underwriters.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there are times when we have to actually go to London to try to get a risk placed. And that's allowed under the Insurance Act because of the fact that Lloyd's is registered here. So you have options.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say too is that insurance has become very price sensitive, right? And you find that sometimes clients will move just to save a few dollars, right? But that kind of goes against the spirit of what I was just saying in terms of developing a relationship.
Yeah.
Now, if you establish a relationship with a client, they're not going to move for a few dollars, most likely. But you have a lot of clients who choose, okay, well, if I could save, enough for lunch, I'm going to move, right? But they're not actually acting in their best interest when they do that sometimes, because when you have a long-term relationship with an agent or a broker, it could actually pay dividends down the road.
Yeah, and that's good. We have a question here. Are insurance companies required to disclose the commission percentage on medical and life coverage? And I think, Howard, you want to take a stab at that? And this is asking for the insurers. I know you're the intermediary, but should they place that out there?
No, that's the role of the intermediary. As an intermediary, we should not be afraid to disclose the commission or fee that we are earning for placing that business. I mean, that's not on the insurance company to disclose.
Yeah.
That is on the intermediary, and every client, in my view, should be asking their broker or agent, what are you being paid? Because that's part of transparency. When you go into an attorney, you're going to ask the attorney what he's going to charge you for a property transaction.
Yeah.
You should be asking the same thing of your broker and agent.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a contentious issue.
It is.
But the reality is that, we are providing a service to the client.
Yeah.
If we're providing a service, we have to be making an income from that service.
Yeah.
And as part of transparency, we need to disclose what that income is. In my view, I don't think it needs to be legislated. I just think it should be a common practice that the client knows what they're paying for.
Yeah, I don't know if I totally agree with that. No. I mean, because as we said earlier in the discussion, we're not, Gildan shares a different view about rebating. As far as I know, we don't rebate.
You're not allowed to rebate it.
Yeah. So there's very little that even if they knew what we were earning, and of course the purpose for asking a question like that is, like, are you earning too much? What can you cut?
Yeah.
Because obviously they're going to be looking for you to cut.
Yeah.
So I think it's a slippery slope when you start to do that. Now, of course, on the broker side, as Gildan says, they charge a fee, so that's a little different. Yeah. But I would be careful. And
that's totally understood.
Yeah.
There's a question here, and I think this may be for the commission. Are there persons employed as a customer service rep calling clients to remind them of their renewals? Is that person required to have a salesperson's license as per the Insurance Commission? We do have technical representatives that should be licensed or registered with the commission. And so each intermediary may have those individuals who are technical representatives.
Well, as a brokerage operation, we are licensed by the commission.
Yes.
So, by extension, our employees would, fall under our license as a brokerage operation.
Yeah.
But I think the question is whether the person who is actually on the front line serving as the customer service representative should be licensed. Well, no, they're licensed under us, but they should be trained.
Yes.
They should definitely be trained because they're on the front line, they're selling the product, and so they should know what they're selling. And so there should be a level of in-house training to make sure that we are doing a professional service so that when the public comes in, they're not disadvantaged.
It's like the story I said, for the first 6 months in March, I couldn't pick up the phone and, so you have to make sure that the persons in your office are able to answer those questions when that phone call comes in.
Yeah, and like I said, there is a level of technical training attached to it. There is a term recognized in terms of our policy in terms of a technical representative. Yeah. And so if you want to find out more information on that person as a technical representative, of course, you can always visit the website, www.icb.gov.bs.
My Marsh story, I was not in Marsh, but I started at J.S. Johnson, and for the first, I think, 3 months, I couldn't even pick up what they did before, I didn't even have a desk. Gillen was lucky he had a desk. I didn't have a desk. Yeah. I had to start in filing because the theory was that if you knew the files, if you knew how to put together the files, you know what goes into the files, then it would then, when you went to become a CSR, I think at the time we called it assistant underwriter, then you would understand the file better. And so that was their training. I didn't even have a phone to pick up, but I had to learn the file.
Yeah. And that's a contributor to your almost your 40 years of experience in the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. We have a question here, and I'm trying to get the context of it in terms of it says, what is the connection between a broker and an agent? I think overall, I think that's what we were discussing here. The broker operates on behalf of the client.
The agent operates on behalf of the insurer.
The agent operates on behalf of the insurer. But in that same relationship, you still look out to provide the best service for that client.
Right. But don't forget that most people in the space operate both as agents and brokers.
Yeah. Right. So another question here coming in. Are there any real advantages? Sorry, we already asked that one. And this is another one asking about direct selling. And I think we talked about it. The agents and brokers add a value to the process. Currently, there is no direct selling of insurance from the insurer to the actual policyholder.
Well, we know that right now that's a discussion that's going on.
And it's a discussion, but as it stands now, there's no direct selling of insurance in the market.
Yeah, as it stands now, according to the Act, there's no direct selling. So a client, a customer, has to buy the product through the agent, right? Through the intermediary, as the Act calls us. And so the insurer, the insurance company, is dependent on the sales force, which is the intermediary force, for business, right? And of course, I guess the question sort of brings an interesting light to it because it's unlike a lot around, because people watch the commercials on TV and they know about, other domiciles like the U.S. and stuff like that, where insurance companies frequently do sell direct. And so the Bahamas and most of the Caribbean is unlike those domiciles in that we pretty much, I guess, are a throwback to yesteryear when this is how business was done. But as we sort of said early, this was an agency-driven market. It is and was an agency-driven market. It was set up by agents. Yeah. Even insurance companies that now exist generally evolved from an agent that set them up, right? Yeah. So it's really been an agency-driven market. But the thing that's important for us to catch there is that even if agency market was done away with and insurance companies started selling direct to the public, they would then need to set up a very elaborate network to do that selling. So whether it's in-house or, if it's in-house, they would have to actually now employ salespeople. So there will be a cost that's going to attach to the premium. So the same cost that's now out remotely in the agency market, they would now have to bring in-house in order to generate those sales. So it's a fallacy to say that if the agency market were to disappear, it's going to make my premium lower, because the same cost will be inherent in the premium.
Yeah, and you, rightly so, you are a distribution channel within the scope of the insurance industry. And so if there was theoretically any form of direct selling, there would still need to be a distribution channel for that to occur. And right now, because the way the legislation is set up, the way our market is set up, agents and brokers facilitate that process as a distribution channel.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And the other thing, Carl, that we facilitate that we didn't actually touch on, but I heard it mentioned in the earlier seminar, the clip from the earlier seminar. Another important feature that agents contribute is the ability to do premium financing, because it's not the insurer who does the premium financing on behalf of the client. And unfortunately, especially in today's economy, just about every client that comes in wants to have the ability to pay their premiums in installments. That is the agent's role and job, and it's the agent who's taking that on. Whereas the agent has to pay the insurer in full.
In full, yes.
It's us who are carrying the burden of the premium financing.
That credit risk.
Yes, so in essence, we are acting like a bank providing a loan to pay your premium. We're paying your premium as the customer in full to the insurance company, and we are giving you a loan to pay your premium to us in installments. And that's an important value-added service that we are contributing to the process.
And while we have some other questions coming in, we also want to remind you that we have some trivia that is going on in the chat also. So there's a new trivia in there, so you want to probably take a look at that as our registered audience. And there's another question about direct selling. Is the direct selling specific to property and casualty, or also health and life? And I think we covered that a bit in that property, there's no direct selling. Even though there is a salesperson attached to the insurer, there's still a registered intermediary selling on behalf of that insurer, correct?
Yeah.
They should hold a salesperson's license.
They will have a salesperson's license. I'm saying registered with the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas as an intermediary.
Yeah, they're salespersons, they're individuals. They're sponsored by the insurer. They're actually employees of the insurer. But in essence, most, having done a bit of time working in some life insurance, in the life insurance field, sort of indirectly, because I worked for the property and casualty arm of two life insurance entities. Life insurers tend to look at their sales force as independent salesmen, even though they are tied and employed, but really they are operating their own business.
But I think that's because they're being compensated by way of commission, not a salary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they're not getting a salary, they are actually independent salespeople who are trying to earn a living by their efforts to sell.
And that goes to the value. They have to add value to that process for the insurer. You have to add value to that process for the insurer and the client, and that's what they're looking at, the client's best interest.
Yeah. For example, like the calendars and stuff like that they give away at Christmas, right? Most of those come out of their own pocket. Like they actually operating a business, they want to give their clients calendars and things like that, and so they pay for those to provide to their clients.
Okay. I think we have one more question coming from the chat, and I'm glad that our session was open like this, so that we spoke about many different things. And of course, this segment, and unlike our previous segments, will be on the website of the Commission, www.icb.gov.bs. But this we see the interest because persons want to know more about understanding, what am I getting this product for? Is this enough for what I require? All of those questions that come up. There's one last question I see here. How does a member of the public determine for himself or herself which intermediary to use, that is, an agent or a broker? And of course, it sounds like a broken record again, but if you want to answer it again, using the same concepts that you said earlier, but we want to make sure that our audience, we drive that home for our audience.
Like Howard said, it's about developing a relationship.
Yeah.
You develop the relationship with the broker or agent. As I said earlier, Chandler Gilbert, we don't advertise. Our book of business was derived from customers that moved with us as we created the entity, and the growth has been through customer referrals. So it's about establishing a relationship with that broker, and it's like I said on the commercial side. The commercial entities really should be establishing a relationship with a broker, and that's who should be handling their insurance placements. I don't know if I can say much more than that.
Okay, we have a question coming in. This is a scenario, and it's probably for the commission also. You guys can probably chime in. Long-term customer with a life insurance policy paid through a local insurance company for an overseas policy. Due to the pandemic, there were challenges making payments on time due to closures, lockdowns. The emergency orders speak to insurance premiums payment concessions. However, apparently the PM only has the veto over local policies. What measures can be taken by the customer whose policy was lapsed during that period due to the issues arising from the pandemic? I think first and foremost, I think you should reach out to the insurance company and have a conversation with them. And if you book that cover through one of our agents and brokers, our registered agents and brokers, you should have a conversation with them, and they will assist you through that process in terms of confirming all of the elements of your scenario. And I think that would be the most prudent thing to do to ensure that they can guide you through that process. And where you find that there are some lapses in the information, of course, please feel free to reach out to the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, and we can deal with that matter or provide some level of clarity on that behind the scenes. Of course, you can always reach out to us through our website and through our email address, info@icb.gov.bs. I think that is all of the questions that we have coming from the chat. Make sure I've answered them all. But any final words? I know we said some words earlier. It's about relationship. It's about value, understanding that the broker has a value added to the client, understanding that the agent, even though they're acting on behalf of the insurer, adds value to that insurer, because you spoke about the volume business, but they also add value to the client. And so any words regarding that in terms of reiterating those things that your company provides on behalf of clients and insurers?
One of the things that I would recommend, especially when it comes, what we find when it comes to the specialty risks, the professional liability coverage, the E&O for architects, engineers, attorneys, the directors and officers liability policies. One of the things that we notice in the market, these are specialty risks. As an intermediary, you need to understand how these risks, where the risk is. You need to understand the policy wording. One of the things that that I've seen within the market is, and I'm probably going to step on some toes here.
Try not to step on toes.
I'll try. I'll try. But the reality is, what we find is some intermediaries chase the commission. So they chase their commission income. So they would, seek to place coverage that they don't truly have an understanding of, which I think it does a disservice to the client. Professional liability coverage are very special, they're very specialized products, and we wouldn't want to see people just chasing that commission dollar, because you have to be able to advise the client. For example, if you take a director and officer's liability policy wording from insurer to insurer varies. So you need to, as an intermediary, you need to be able to sit down, understand what each of those clauses means to the insured, and which of those policies is going to be best suited to that insured, because not every director's officer's liability policy is going to operate in the same manner.
Yeah.
And we talk about adding value. When we, for example, send a professional liability submission to the London market, we are not a postbox. So we don't receive the completed application and just send it on. We receive the completed application, we review it for full completion, but then when we go to our London market broker, we actually lay out to the broker what terms we want them to negotiate. Okay. Because otherwise, if you just accept that application from the client and you send it off to a London broker with no instructions, that broker is just going to look to place a generic product rather than look at specific terms that are going to impact a particular client. So I think it's important that the clients also are reassured or are assured that the intermediary they're working with on those types of placements truly understands what the exposure is. The intermediary should also know that client's business so that that broker can highlight where the exposures in that business are and make sure that those exposures are properly covered.
And that speaks to understanding what your client requires and providing what the client needs.
Right.
And Howard, I think you said that throughout your presentation, both of you.
And so Gildan, as you could detect, his shop is more of a boutique, takes a more boutique approach. At the company that I represent, we take more of a approach where we would like to be able to help our clients with all their needs. Like we would like, and that's why we do some life and health, because we would like to be able to assist the client with all of their insurance needs, right? And so we have people that do the volume stuff, the motor, but we also have a department that does commercial stuff. So these are the more like technical persons who we've hired who understand the sort of more complex insurances. And so we're set up that way so that we have people who do both, right? But the thing is, you also need to, what I wanted to also get across is that insurance is even more technical than just people who are dealing with the technical insurance matters, because you also have to have people who deal with the administrative matters, the operations matters. And so insurance, and especially today, shout out to the Insurance Commission, who've hit us with a ton of regulatory stuff, KYC. Like doing insurance is not the same as it was even 5 years ago. So there's so much complexity to insurance now that you need someone to help you to navigate through it, right? But what I want to, my sort of final words though would be, there's a lot of choice out there. There's a lot of agents, as we said, there's 58 of them. And to some extent, you have insurance products that are compulsory because you have motor insurance. You need to have it to drive on the road. We live in a hurricane belt. And so people, if they're wise, they're going to want to protect their home. And so as an agent, what I need to ask myself, what clients need to be asking is, why do I choose, because I have to buy it, but why do I choose that particular agent? And so you need to establish yourself and establish your reputation, your professionalism, so that knowing that the client has to buy it, that they want to choose to buy it from me.
Indeed.
All right. Yeah. I think those are good points to close. So Howard, Gildan, thank you for providing a brief insight, because we can talk about this on and on, but it's good that clients at least have a snapshot of it. And what we want our policyholders to be on the lookout for engaging with an insurance agent or a broker. So these are some of the discussions that we want to have. But before we leave, we've had some chats, some trivia questions in the chat. And of course, we want to announce those winners following a message from the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas.
When you testify in court, you're expected to tell the truth. Same goes for your insurance application form. You have to answer every question truthfully and provide all the information requested, or you could be found guilty of misrepresentation. That means your insurance company could deny your policy or refuse to pay your claim. Your insurance company relies on the information you provide to determine whether to issue you a policy. Leaving out just one piece of information could lead to misrepresentation. So read your application form carefully. If you're unsure about anything, ask your insurance agent or broker before completing and signing your insurance application form. This message was brought to you by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, protecting the interests of policyholders.
The Insurance Commission of the Bahamas wants you to know your policy. Before you sign, read every line. Ask your insurance agent, broker, or salesperson as many questions as you need to. Know your policy. This message was brought to you by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. The Commission regulates all insurance companies, agents, brokers, and salespersons to protect the interests of policyholders. For more information on what to look for when purchasing a policy, visit www.icb.gov.bs.
And the winners of our trivia session, we have Miss Lanika Logan and Miss Bernadette Cooper. Of course, you can contact Mr. Norman Haven at the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, and he will be glad to assist you in collecting your trivia prizes. I want to once again thank you, our guests and panelists. We want to thank you, our virtual audience, for attending today's webinar. We ask that you stay tuned for more information coming from the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. We also invite you to complete our end-of-session survey, which will be emailed to you. This information is critical in helping the Commission engage all of its stakeholders. Also, for more information on the Commission, its complaint process, or anything that you wish to find out, please visit our website at www.icb.gov.bs. Thank you once again.